As you're tuning in today, you're probably wondering why you're not viewing a policy hearing. The committee scheduled a public hearing with Dominion Voting Systems to be held now. The members of the State Government Committee were looking forward to publicly addressing the plethora of accusations of Dominion Voting Systems in a format which would have allowed open and honest dialogue. I was impressed at what appeared to be the willingness of Dominion Voting Systems to address accusations, and it would have put 1.3 million Pennsylvanians who use their machines at ease, including myself. Thinking Dominion was willing to publicly back up their product, which Pennsylvania taxpayers invested millions to purchase and voters entrusted with their sacred ballots, was truly remarkable. I truly felt Pennsylvanians and the nation could get some answers into the truth of the effectiveness of Dominion Voting Systems. Unfortunately, last evening, Dominion Voting Systems lawyered up and backed out of their commitment to the people of Pennsylvania to provide their input in a public format and discuss their voting systems, of which 1.3 Pennsylvanians entrusted. Instead of running towards the light of honesty and integrity, Dominion Voting Systems retreated to the darkness. Why? Why would a vendor of public goods fear discussing their products sold to the public for the public good? If Dominion's products were successful and operated as they were supposed to, why wouldn't Dominion take the opportunity to publicly review its success? How hard is it to say our ballot machines worked exactly as promised and they are 100% accurate? Why, after weeks of accusations, has Dominion Voting Systems not released any analysis of the success of their voting machines to the public in order to stop their accusers in their tracks? They have nothing to hide. Why are they hiding from us? Today, I am saddened to report to the taxpayers of Pennsylvania and the 1.3 million voters who trusted Dominion Voting Systems with their ballots that Dominion Voting Systems has hung you out to dry and slapped you in your faces. Not only are Pennsylvanians more skeptical, but the actions of Dominion Voting Systems last night have led credibility to their accusers' accusations.
Are you going to
What did Trump promise you? What did Trump promise you?
Where's the fraud? Where's the evidence of fraud? Where's the evidence of fraud? Where is the evidence of fraud? Shame on you! Certify the results! Certify the results! Congressman Bannon!
Certify the results!
Meeting! Certify the results! Certify the results! Why are you meeting? Certify the results! Shame on you! Certify the results! Certify the results! Certify the results!
Where's Twitter on that? Where's Facebook on that? That's a mob, okay? All they're there is to harass and to try to frighten you. That's a public official. Right, that's a public official that is doing his job, going to the White House to see the chief magistrate of this nation, the President of the United States, and he's mobbed at the airport in Michigan, and he's mobbed when he gets to Reagan National Airport in our nation's capital. Where are the police? Where are the Capitol Police? Where are federal authorities? They knew where he's coming in. Why is there no protection for him? This is what you're up against. This is what we're fighting. We are not going to bend to this mob. That's the future. That's the future of your country. Those are the people. You see, count all the votes, count all the votes. They don't care if they're illegal alien votes. They don't care if they're coming back from the dead. They don't care if they're made up. Count all the votes, count all the votes. Well, no, we're not going to count all the votes. It's not going to happen. You're going to be tearing your hair out. You're going to be crying. You're going to be having riots. We don't care. We don't care. We're not counting all the votes. We're going to only count the legal, certifiable chain of custody from living folks that are registered to vote. Those are the votes that we're going to count, and we're not going to count anything else. And when we count those, Donald Trump's going to win in a massive landslide. We don't care how many Lamar Alexanders, we don't care how many Bob Corkers, we don't care. And by the way, people in Tennessee ought to be ashamed. You got the Corkers of the world and the Lamar Alexanders of the world and all these guys out there right now saying they're throwing the towel. We're not throwing out the towel. Heck, folks, we're not even halfway through this. This is going to get a lot uglier. President Trump, last time I looked, You're the president of the United States. Why are there not federal officials? People are coming in to see you. This is like the convention over at the White House when the people left. They're attacked. This is like they have a rally or march in support. People are attacked. This is like the CDC. Nobody goes home for Thanksgiving. Let's start running the government like we run the government. When an official comes in for a visit, let's have some protection. It's not that we don't know what's going to happen. That intimidates people. That's why people don't want to step up. People are afraid. We see it every day. Our phone blows up. I got information, but I'm afraid. I know what went on, but I'm afraid. I see what happened to the commissioners in Michigan. I'm afraid. Nobody's there to protect me. I'm afraid. The left understands this. The opposition understands this. They understand the fear. That's what it's all about. They knew the guy was coming. Where's the protection? He had one guy with him. It looks like his body man. If we're going to win this, we got to get serious about it. Let's close and win. But we have to be serious. And be serious. We got to be thinking about every extra piece. The piece in Axios today. All of those people that leaked to Axios. Hey, look, just do the following. Just go. Just leave. We don't need you around. You lost. You did not secure the victory. That's why we're in the situation we're in right now. You win on the third, but that's not the whole thing. The only victory that matters is who raises their hand at noon on the 20th of January, 2021. Everything else is a set of steak knives. Coffees for closers. You didn't close, so don't sit around and just leak on the people that are trying to close. I don't hear all your excuses. Oh, you don't think this, you don't think that. First off, all the lawsuits were wrong. All your lawsuits, the remedies didn't get you to victory, didn't get you a decertification, didn't get you enough votes. So don't hear about all the great crack legal team you had. You didn't have a crack great legal team. We wouldn't be doing this today if you did. But you don't need to sit there and go to Jonathan Swan and just start whining. There's a great awakening of the American people, but there's going to be a great separation of who are down for the fight and who are not. Because don't think on President Trump. Don't think after he raises his hand. Everybody out there in the audience, don't think after he raises his hands on the 20th on the Bible. You think it's going to get better? Do you honestly think it's going to get better? That's when it really gets tough. You talk about fear. How many people do you think are going to sign up to serve in the second term? How many? Look at the first term. How many great jobs people come getting out of the White House? How many great corporate jobs? You get the Yahoo, you get the Google comms job, you get the $4 million comms job the Obama guy gets, you get the great corporate gig, you're going to be hired by one of these lobbyist firms as a big rainmaker. The answer to all of that is no. What did John Kerry? John Kerry said it today. John Kerry, he put the finger on it. He said the greatest single threat to the Great Reset, which is the operating manual, the operating plan of the globalist, is the nationalistic populist. Well, if you're a nationalistic populist, which means you support this president, you're not sitting there. You're not going to get a big corporate gig from a globalist, okay? Unless you turn to apostate. There's a couple or three of those out there.
In that same speech, he also points out Brexit as a potential problem that needs to be resolved. So all you deplorables in Great Britain, you're going to get rolled over. Because Boris Johnson is not going to do anything. And then the other thing that he says, this is something that we all have to deal with. We have to face up to it. You have to deal with us, John?
We have to face up with us. You better sit down, John, with your stepson and talk to him. Talk to Chris Hines about how the Bidens are. Chris Hines, you got to stop hiding. We're going to make you famous next week. We're going to make you famous with the guys you're hanging out with. John Kerry, have a discussion. In fact, I think your Twitter page, you said your first thing is your Teresa's husband. Talk to your stepson Okay, I want to go to. I've got a very special guest. I'm going to get off my soapbox. You're in the War Room, live on Capitol Hill, on John Fredericks, Real America's Voice, and Newsmax, G News, GTV. Let's play Tim Pool. I want to play Tim Pool, the very well-known liberal progressive. I want to play a little Tim Pool to introduce our next guest.
But I believe, based on the data that Matt Braynard has collected, we absolutely need now some kind of independent audit or verification in these states. This is serious stuff. The important thing to realize, I believe these are all Republican, and Republicans were less likely to send in absentee ballots. That means for every 70...
Tim Pool, and he introduces, we could go on and on for that. He's 15 minutes, is magnificent, but we want to bring the guy in himself, Matt Braynard. Matt actually set up and ran the data operation. That was one of the central keys to the Trump 2016 victory. This is a guy that understands systems, he understands data, and most importantly, he knows how to extract from data what exactly is going on with the data. Matt, we only got a couple minutes in this segment. We're going to bring you back for the next, but I want to tee it off first. I wanted you just to describe before we get into the details of what Tim Pool and so many of us are excited about. What have you been doing post November 3rd to work through and try to help the American people understand what went on?
So I bring to the table a very deep and broad background working in voter and election systems. As you mentioned, I was in charge of data and strategy at the Trump campaign in 2016, but I've worked on campaigns all over the country and for the country's premier election and administration firm, Election Data Services. So these are subjects I'm very intimate about. After the election, there was a lot of questions about anomalies that have been occurring, and I saw a lot of speculation, a lot of line graphs and charts and postulations about mathematical theories. And I thought to myself that what we really need to do is find concrete pieces of evidence that demonstrate that if something nefarious happened here, something concrete. So I designed 6 research methods that I applied across all 6 states to find real living, breathing people who are potentially victims of voter fraud, or concrete evidence of people taking actions that they shouldn't, like voting twice or voting in violation of their residencies.
And how did you staff that? How did you pull together? You had the theory of the case, and you went to the 6 states, and you knew what you wanted to accomplish. How did you staff it, and who did you staff it with? What were their qualifications?
Well, first, this was a very expensive process. We spent about $190,000 on data, about $400,000 on phone calls through call centers. And what I did was I pulled back together my same team from 2016, the Trump campaign, who have a very good understanding of the subject matter. We set up a headquarters. We expanded our internal call center. So I went back to the same people that helped, that I knew I could count on for before to build the core parts of my team, along with many of the same vendors. In fact, all the vendors that the campaign had used in the past, both for data and for call centers. And thankfully, we crowdfunded and we were able to raise the amount of money we needed to pay for this very quickly.
Okay, Matt, I want you to hang on, take a short commercial break. We'll return and find out some of the preliminary results of your activity. Matt Braynard, who ran data and data science for us at the 2016 victorious Trump campaign. And when you say crowdsourced, that means that the deplorables put their shoulder to the wheel and pulled out their checkbooks. This one's on you, folks. Okay, we're going to take a short break. We're going to return with the one and only Matt Braynard on War Room, the pandemic, in just a moment.
干灭中国共产党这个 CCP， 还能让我们愿。
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back to the War Room Pandemic live on Capitol Hill. It's Friday, the 20th of November, year of our Lord 2020. This is the evening show. I want to turn now to Matt Braynard, who ran digital and data sciences for the 2016 Trump campaign. So, Matt, let's go back to what your theory of the case was, and then what did you guys just come forward with and start doing that has a guy like Brother Tim Pool, who's not exactly a right-wing fanatic, that has him so excited about what you've discovered that he thinks it now ought to be part of a formal investigation.
Right. So again, I think that what separates our project from everything else out there that is questioning this election is that we are coming forward with concrete examples. There's no speculation. There's no mathematical theories or scatter plots here. We have reached out to voters across the country in these and in these 6 states, trying to find people who disagree with the state's record of what actually happened. So we found people who are telling us that they did not cast a ballot, even though the state has marked a ballot for them. People who are telling us that they did not request an absentee ballot, even though the state says they sent them one. And people who say they sent back an absentee ballot, even though the state said they never received it. We're also finding people that have voted multiple times in multiple states, people who have cast ballots in states that they are no longer legally eligible to do so. And, I think when people think of voter fraud, there's a real, I guess, a perception of there being some really dark cloak and dagger stuff, and maybe that does take place, but most of the time that leaves indicators that can be uncovered through a proper investigation. That's what we've done here. So we find in cases that either there's a tremendous amount of clerical error, there's some kind of organized effort to do this, or there's a lot of self-initiated voter fraud, like somebody who lives in New York, but they got an absentee ballot from Georgia and decided to cast it in Georgia. We found cases like this where people are shopping around where they want to vote, even if they don't meet the residency requirements. And in many cases, we've put together substantial numbers of these people that we've documented, and at least in Georgia, far more than the margin of victory in that state.
That's the question. And by the way, I want to bifurcate this. How much do you think it's just election administration, and how much do you actually think it is acts of commission of willful voter fraud?
Well, the problem is the election system in this country is so broken that it creates a space for this to happen, and it creates a tremendous space for people to suspect it of happening because it's very hard to disprove. Now, I don't have any evidence of it being organized. I don't have any evidence to determine it either way, so I'd only have to speculate, and I've tried to stay away from speculating. I've just come up with people who say that they did not vote, and the state said they voted. I've come up with concrete examples of people who do not have, through multiple indicators, are not eligible to cast votes in these 6 states. So, it's really up to people who are proper investigators, or the court system, or the legislatures, to better investigate, like, how does this happen? How does a kid who's an Olympic wrestler who has not voted in a long time in Arizona have a ballot cast in his name? I come forward very publicly, who all they got from us was a voice message saying, hey, we believe a ballot was cast in your name and you may not have cast it. And we're collecting these stories all over the country and turning them into declarations and affidavits for courtrooms. And in almost all these cases, we have audio recordings of the phone calls of people telling us, no, I did not cast that ballot.
So that is what Matt Poole is so excited about, that you've actually gone in what we call here in the war room, you have the receipts. You actually went and you use this call center you set up to actually contact people, willingly recorded them, and they actually came clean with that they didn't vote. Somehow it's been done in their name, correct?
That's correct. So I've got all of their, we have their names, their addresses, etc. And this is entirely concrete. So when I put out a number, I mean, that's a real number. That's a real person who acknowledged something through one of our surveys, or whom we can literally hold up. This is South Carolina's voter registration, and this is Georgia's, and you can see these are clearly the same person on a very tight and exact match. So again, there's no speculation. And when I started, I was really aiming to create what I would consider to be stuff that's actionable, because I don't think theories are necessarily actionable, but this stuff, I mean, it's as concrete as it gets.
I want to make sure for the audience, one of the things we try to do is to do kind of constructs, intellectual constructs, so you can start to about how to think things and get mental maps. In this process, we have a retail and we have a wholesale. Rooting a lot of the lawsuits and a lot of what you hear with Sidney Powell, that's more the wholesale. That's more the going after the category of illegal ballots and the whole mail-in ballot and all those issues. Matt, in the granularity side of it, are getting down to the details of the retail, of actually what happened, and tie it back to either people or people that have died or whatever. Matt, the question gets to be on the methodology you're pursuing and going down, whereas Brother Tim Pool gets excited, and yes, you're clearly showing the hard evidence of voter fraud. At the end of the day, does this get enough? And I realize Wisconsin and Georgia and Nevada are different than Michigan and Pennsylvania, but do you see right now where, besides the fact that yes, there was voter fraud and it'll be tied back to something, that your retail efforts, do you think there actually is going to be enough there at the end of the day that either you can't certify these states or actually could flip them?
Well, right now it's a matter for the lawyers, and I've been busy all day filling out declarations and reviewing exhibits that are, I think, have already been filed as of the 5 o'clock deadline today in a couple of different states. And I know there are a couple other states because, like, all this research is going into courtrooms. And I do know that some people have been bringing it to try to lobby legislators. So it's having an effect that way. I have no idea whether it will actually have an impact. But, I hope that it motivates people to look a lot more carefully at this election, and not only this election, but to moving forward, bring about the kinds of reforms that are necessary to prevent this kind of thing from happening. On Monday, I intend to release my full report and all of my conclusions, along with making recommendations. And one of the recommendations I'm going to absolutely have to make is, with these voting machines, whether, I'm not an expert in the software, and I can't make any claims about vote switching or, how data was transferred, but one thing I'm certain of is that all of these systems are closed. And in any kind of democracy, it is absolutely imperative that any of our electronic counting machines be open sourced. And I think that's an issue that Democrats and Republicans can probably agree on, is that the software and the hardware have absolutely got to be open source, so there's no doubt about how it works. There's no black box that's somehow impenetrable to public scrutiny or to regulatory oversight. And that's definitely a change that I think needs to happen, not just to prevent potential voter fraud, but to eliminate the suspicion of it, because I'll tell you that as bad as an illegitimately elected government is, the widely held suspicion of an illegitimately elected government is just about as dangerous and is absolutely toxic to a democracy. Look, I know that Barack Obama won the election in 2012. I didn't like it. It made me sick to my stomach when it happened, but I know he won it. And I think that when people know that they got beat, then they can sort of focus on the party or the way you organize and how to better register people and turn them out and all that. The problem is when the suspicion is that it doesn't matter if it's just going to be stolen anyway, it's incredibly demoralizing. Again, it's very toxic to a democracy. So, I mean, when I started this, I didn't know what my conclusions were going to be. I didn't have any preconceived notions of what I would find. Now I have found things. I'm starting to, finally go through the final process of digesting them and trying to draw some conclusions. And I'll release those Monday. But I think what people, when I started this project, what they really wanted was just to know the truth. They weren't saying, go get that evidence, go flip these states, go win the election. They just wanted to really know the truth, because not knowing that is very dangerous to a democracy.
Did the Trump campaign, did you reach out to them for resources instead of having the deplorables put up the money? Did you reach out to the Trump campaign, or you thought it was just better not to take campaign money so you could have independence and not take guidance from everybody? We're going to do it the way we're going to do it, and the results are going to be the way we're just going to put the results up.
Well, the way this started was I didn't intend to do this. I wrote an outline of these methods that could be applied, and I sent them to all of the important people, many people I'm sure you and I both know, and it didn't go anywhere. So what I did was, at the time, I had like less than 200 followers on Twitter, and I just tweeted it. Within 24 hours, a GoFundMe had been set up, and we had raised $220,000. GoFundMe nuked that. They deleted it and refunded everybody their money. So we created another crowdfunding site on GiveSendGo, and that got almost $650,000 raised. And then I told people, please stop sending money because that's really I need to pay for this project. And I didn't want to have any really left over if I could avoid it. So that's how it started. And I've been in contact with all the lawyers for the campaign in the different states and different lawyers running parallel operations. And in some cases, it's not completely clear, but if this evidence is useful that I've created, or my testimony can be helpful, I've certainly done everything to make myself available. And so far, I've signed quite a few declarations and exhibits that are being filed in courtrooms across the country.
We look forward to having you back, Matt, about your full report. You got about 30 seconds. Has the Biden campaign reached out and tried to be of assistance? And your comment earlier about illegitimacy and illegal nature, do you believe it would behoove the Biden campaign to get actively involved here so that people could see that this election was done with only legal votes? And we got about 30 seconds.
I think it would be in their interest to do so, absolutely, because they don't want to have hanging over their heads the specter of illegitimacy. However, I sometimes wonder if they think that maybe they want to encourage that, because in other countries, whereas there's that specter of illegitimacy and the inability to do anything about it, it really demoralizes your political opponents and might just convince people who supported Trump that they just shouldn't bother voting again, which I think would be a win for them.
Matt,
so this way, the suspicion of it kind of helps them.
How did the people get access to you, Matt, to the site, to your work, to you personally?
Just got to follow me on Twitter, @MattBraynard. That's where all of it is.
@Matt Braynard. Matt, you're a great guy and a central part of the Trump victory of 16. Matt Braynard, data scientist. Okay, be back with Posobiec in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
I want to really thank all of our co-production partners, the John Fredericks Radio Network, Real America's Voice, Howard Diamond, the entire team over there, John Fredericks, everybody in Denver, for helping us put this on, particularly in the afternoon show. We're trying to give you 4 hours a day and then throughout the day pump out information. This is one of the most critical and important times in all of American history. You know, what's that saying? I think it was actually Lennon said it. There are years in which nothing happens, and there are weeks in which years happen. And that's where we're living here ever since this pandemic. And this pandemic's had such an incredible intensity. History is going to be written about this year, 2020, of all the amazing stuff that went on. And what I'm really proud of this audience is that much of it came from your resolve not to bend. And that's where we are today. The next couple of weeks, till December 14th, at least December 14th, I believe this be one of the craziest, most intense Thanksgivings we've ever had. You know, President Trump, and this is why I'm so upset about the CDC announcing this. And by the way, if it's part of the task force and it's worked through the system and everybody agrees with it on the task force and it's put out in some official thing, I have no problem with that. That's called process. But it just seems like there's guys just dropping these thermonuclear bombs randomly, right? Oh, it's the fourth quarter. No, Fauci, it's the fourth quarter of next year. We're going to be in lockdown or financial strife. It's you can't go anywhere on Thanksgiving. President Trump, they put out one the other day on the wreaths. You know, one of the greatest private things that's been done is it's a couple, I think, started up in Pennsylvania to start putting wreaths on the graves at Arlington National Cemetery, and it got to be all the national cemeteries throughout the country. It got people, it's all volunteers, people putting up money, etc., wreaths across America. It's incredibly moving when it's done. If you've seen, I know so many young people, like in L.A., and Andrew Breitbart, when they first sit there and they see the wreaths all over the tombstones, headstones, these simple white headstones that are in the national cemeteries, it's incredibly moving. And somebody in the Army or somebody that runs the cemetery just decided, hey, because of COVID-19, not going to have it. President saw it, changed the order immediately, right? I'd like to have him change the order here and going to Thanksgiving.
Well, it's particularly moving because you have a wreath laying against these gravestones, these waves of silent dead who are not going to be with their families at that very important time of year. And now we have the CDC and the rest of these people telling us that we can't get together with our families again, right? And you can't even have a wreath.
It's amazing.
It's pathetic.
With our honored dead. Okay, I want to bring in now. So what we've tried to do on the show is be a center you can come to and get actionable information and real information, particularly now in this intense period when we think that either people are not covering it, right? And look, Fox has made a business decision. And that's a business. I don't hold anything against the Murdochs, and you shouldn't sit there and cry and gnash your teeth. They made it a business decision. It just is what it is. But they're not covering it, particularly like Ailes would have covered it, and we're trying to. We're trying to bring the best experts. We're trying to bring a lot of numbers people, a lot of lawyers so you can get the details. one of the guys I think has really stood out in this entire process has been Jack Posobiec, and we from One American News, and we now honored to have Jack back on. Jack, give us an assessment of where we stand in the places that you're really focused on.
Well, Steve, thanks so much for your kind words, and you're right that we've been doing all that we can to keep up with, it feels like we're drinking from a fire hose, and this movement that President Trump, the deplorables, the Tea Partiers have put together is standing strong. It's standing very strong in this time, and I think there's a lot of different venues out there, a lot of different channels of action through which this is going. Of course, you see people out in the grassroots with the marches for Trump, the bus tour for Trump that's going on. You're now starting to see the courtroom battles that have gotten traction. Two of the states where I focused on that, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, major moves. In the state of Wisconsin today, 9 o'clock this morning, I came on the other day, we talked about this, the recount was going to get underway. It's gotten underway. And they've gone through and they're putting up actual observers. You've got 2 observers for every single person that's going through and counting. So they're actually taking a look at these ballots. They're taking a very close look. And, I mentioned before the great patriot Bob Spindell of Milwaukee, who fought tooth and nail in a 6-hour slugfest with these guys over live stream the other night at the Wisconsin Election Commission, fighting these liberals. And we've got these liberals going on Joy Reid and calling him a racist. They're doing everything they can, but all he said was, I want to put up plexiglass so that the legal observers from both campaigns can actually see the various ballots that they're going through. And Steve, guess what's going on there in Wisconsin today, in Madison and Milwaukee? They've got the plexiglass. They're sitting right there at the tables with them. They're looking at every single ballot.
And so, but here's the question about, like down in Georgia, does it make sense for us now to recount before we actually ascertain, in particularly in Wisconsin? Because in Wisconsin, you caught them dead to rights with what they were doing with these, they didn't have an early vote and what they were doing with the absentee ballots. Shouldn't you try to get that sorted first before you actually do the recount? Or are you saying that gets done the way Wisconsin's doing it, it's getting done at the same time?
Right. So the way they're doing it is, and that's something I actually didn't understand myself at first, but then when I dug into it, I figured out what the strategy was. They're doing it simultaneously. So as the recount started, the Trump campaign went to their observers and they said, okay, every time you see a ballot that's marked off where the address is done in a different color ink, or the handwriting has a different different type of handwriting for the signature block, or if you see the witness for ballot after ballot on multiple ballots, we want to mark all those. So make a note of every single one of those ballots. So all the observers that are in the room, they're tracking all of these things. At the same time, the campaign this morning, as the recount started, they filed 3 objections. Okay, so the Trump campaign has filed 3 objections. Trump attorney Chris Tupas has put this out. It has to do, number 1, with the election clerks filling out the missing address blocks. It has to do where the absentee ballots were not filed properly. This is due to a procedure that they instituted at the Wisconsin. This is something that came up the other night as well. Dean Knudsen, a Republican, brought it up. He said, I'm not sure if we instituted this early voting process properly under the law as the statute is written. That's 70,000 ballots right there. And then there's another one, and this is something that Matt Braynard has looked into as well, and it has to do with a type of absentee ballot under Wisconsin law called indefinitely confined. So it has to do with basically marking yourself that you're disabled and you're not able to actually get to the polls, right? Well, Matt Braynard found in his data analysis, and I've been working with Matt as well, that number skyrocketed almost 500 times more. There was 14,000 in the 2016 election. There's now something like 160,000 people who declared themselves disabled for the 2020 election. So the Trump campaign on those 3 channels, on those 3 avenues, is filing objections concurrently as the recount is going through. And these are the 3 things that Republican and Trump observers are looking for as the recount goes on.
Look, that's that's 230 to 250,000 votes, but have the votes already been intermingled? This is my point. Those 3 things are not small. This is why it took 5 hours the other night. For our audience, Posobiec was live streaming it. He had 1 million views. He had people from all over the world. I had people in Europe. I had people in Asia. Posobiec's giving play-by-play commentary on a commission meeting. What was it, in Madison, Wisconsin, I think it was? Going into the wee hours of the morning with what Knutson and, the veterinarian and, and this is what people get wrong. They misinterpret Wisconsin nice. Was not the Iron Brigade was from Wisconsin, was it not? I think the Iron Brigade is from Wisconsin. I'm going to check that out. I think it's Iowa or Wisconsin. My point is they misinterpret this Midwest nice. They don't understand these are Midwest resolve, steel, will not budge. And that's what we saw the other night. He's live streaming a commission meeting.
Indeed, you are correct. The Iron Brigade, also known as the Black Hats.
The Black Hats in the Union Army, one of the most renowned, revered at Gettysburg, all over, would not break. Made of the same stuff. That's what Knutson is. He's Iron Brigade. They're very polite. They're very nice. But they're not going to back down an inch. And that's what you saw tonight. Posobiec streaming this thing, he's got 1 million viewers. Why? People understand this is history being made right here. And I got to tell you, it gets very confusing when you start to talk. But the Democrats are nervous about something. They're sitting there trying to redo this playbook, this manual, right? Or trying to undo it. And they're running from something. And then you start calculating the votes. You go, we got them. We got these guys cheating dead to rights. And no, Joy Reid and MSNBC and, Rachel Maddow and all that crowd, Chris Hayes, no, they're all saying you're racist, you're trying to suppress votes. You've been caught cheating. The whole thing of the shut-ins goes from, 14,000 to 230,000? Am I math right? The 70,000, just there's no early voting, so they got to give them the absentee ballots. You're caught cheating, and this enough to flip Wisconsin. Am I wrong here? And the people kept telling me, Ryan's
Steve, I've got the numbers right from Braynard. It's 2018, and I'll use 2018 numbers. In 2018, it was 14,000 in terms of their shut-ins, right?
Yep.
14,000. In 2020, 169,000.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Where's my guy in Delaware? Come on, man.
To be fair, the Democrats already have their answer for this. And this is why this whole pandemic is so important, people. It is the coronavirus. Yeah. It is actually the governor who has declared that everyone is a stay-at-home at this point. Yeah. So that to me is a rough one, but
this is all going to go to the court, though. This is all going to go to the court because if their statute says that, does the governor have?
No, they do not have. They do not have statutory authority, and the medical emergency does not overrule a thing called the Constitution that the state legislators, have got the power. It's in the Constitution. It's hardwired into there. You got from Pennsylvania to Michigan to Wisconsin, you got these Democratic governors, and you think they're going to make up the rules as they go along. Sorry, not sorry. I'm telling you, caught them dead to rights in Wisconsin.
There is some good news because the Supreme Court gave their circuit assignments to this morning. We talked about it briefly, but we should talk about it again. And if it goes to Amy Coney Barrett's Seventh Circuit, guess what? She'll be getting to have a little to say on what happens in Wisconsin.
Glorious ACB.
The same is going to be true for Samuel Alito, who drew the Third Circuit, which means he can go back to his Pennsylvania logic. Also, I think this one's pretty good. We've got Kavanaugh. He pulls the Sixth Circuit for Michigan. And Clarence Thomas, my favorite, my hero, truly a brave American. Thomas pulls the 11th. That means he goes back to his home state of Georgia.
So, Jack, we got about a minute, 30 seconds. Wrap up Wisconsin. Going to bring you back and do Michigan and Pennsylvania. But what's your thoughts right now?
This is what we need to bring. This is what we need to break down. And I'm going to piggyback off of what Maxie just said. And I said this last week, and I'm saying it here again. The phrase you need to focus on is statutory authority. Were these rule changes made by people who had the statutory authority to enact election changes in their states? In Pennsylvania, we found out they don't. That set the precedent. That legal precedent is now out there from the Commonwealth Court. Okay, this is going to go up to who the originalists, that list that Maxie just read off, the originalists will not stand for people overstepping their statutory authority.
Jack, just hang with us. We'll take a short commercial break, sell some ads here, be capitalist, and then we'll return with Jack Posobiec of One American News. He joins Greg Mans, Jack Maxey, myself in the War Room for our Friday evening special. We're going to be back in just a moment.
Taking down the CCP, spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when they're
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room. We got breaking news, Greg Mans.
Yes, Governor Kemp in Georgia has announced that he will be appointing presidential electors in the state of Georgia upon news of the Secretary of State certification.
So he approved the certification? This initial certification?
This is the process moving forward, yes.
Okay, we're going to have John Fredericks on the top of the hour to go through all this. Also, Kyle Rittenhouse, I think, made bail today, $2 million bail. Lynn Wood is the great attorney that's suing down in federal court on this consent, Jack Maxey's consent. They're suing the consent, I think, which blows up the entire Georgia election. He's also, I think, the lawyer for Rittenhouse. Got him out on bail. Want to turn back now. John Fredericks from Georgia at 6 o'clock gives us all the details. Want to go back to Brother Posobiec, Michigan, sir. Here, the guy's mobbed. He's at the meeting at the White House right now. Do we have any? I want to make sure we get any. We want to get on the president's Twitter stream and find out what's going on over there. They're meeting at the White House right now. Jack, what's the update on Michigan?
Yeah, so I haven't heard any of the readouts from the meeting. I believe the meeting is actually still going on right now. But from what I was told going into it, that the president has reached out to them and said, I want to give you whatever support you need. They're now working to interface their efforts with the campaign, with the Trump legal team, and with them on the ground. They're saying, look, we've seen the same discrepancies that you guys have. We've seen these same, these precincts with 0 people on the register rolls in Wayne County. How can you have people voting if there's 0 people registered? Why won't Wayne County actually release their numbers? And this is a situation, again, where these 2 elected officials, throw out their party affiliation for a second here, they're elected officials or appointed officials in public trust who took an oath of office that they would faithfully discharge the duties of their position. They see these discrepancies and they're saying we cannot certify because there are problems with the data. That's something that anybody of any party should be able to do. Now, what's interesting is the campaign really was the only people you didn't see a lot of people in the media talking about Wisconsin and Michigan up until just a few days ago. And it's the infectious courage. I said this the other day. Courage is contagious. When people take a stand in bravery, it will stiffen the spines of others. But in Michigan, you're seeing that in Wisconsin. Now you're seeing it spread to other states, and it's happening at the local levels here. Whoever thought we'd be talking about state county officials in Wayne County, Michigan, being the ones to stand up and save the republic, and yet here we are.
I'm telling you, that night it will be an inflection point. 6 o'clock when those 2, with Palmer and the other guy, when Miss Palmer and the other guy said, "No, we're not going to certify this." That was the shot heard around the world, right? That was an inflection point in this entire period.
And you saw the way the Democrats reacted.
Oh, to full meltdown. And you had Susan Glasser.
One of these things gets pulled back, that then the thread's going to start to get pulled. They don't want Steve Bannon in the War Room pulling that thread. They don't want anyone pulling these.
Listen, Jack, I have something I just kind of have to reveal. I won't give you the full reveal, but I'm just looking at this stuff right now, and I'm laughing because the grift was so large. Somebody just sent me an Excel spreadsheet comparing names, first, middle initial, and last name, and date of birth, comparing the voter rolls of Michigan and Pennsylvania. They have over 130,000 people who match all 4 of those criteria. First name, middle initial, last name, and date of birth that apparently voted in both states or on the voter rolls. This stuff is crazy. I got a brilliant guy, European, contacted me, a county in western Pennsylvania. They found hundreds and hundreds of dead people. This was just by doing a random sampling, going and contacting people on the voter rolls who were over 80 years of age. All the people that they found that were dead had voted. And this could be going on for years and years. This is going to be proved, people. Do not worry. Tomorrow is going to be a bombshell show.
Yeah, we're going to put this all out so people
Yeah, look,
can
and
see.
I can say this just from my, I haven't seen that data myself, that what you're talking about, but from my own experience in the Philadelphia area, growing up there, working elections in that area, this has been a 20-year project for the Democrat Party, the Democrat machines in these areas. This isn't something that happened overnight. This has been steadily growing and building election cycle after election cycle, voter rolls getting dirtier. Motor voter in the 90s was a big catalyst of all this. And now with the mail-in ballots, that was the precursor that set it into the stratosphere. That was, in their sense, the key that picked the lock. I know, Steve, you like that phrase. But that allowed them to utilize these dirty rolls in a way they never had before. Exponential use of the dirty rolls.
Lance, Jack, I know you got to bounce. Just for the audience over the weekend, because people are working 24/7. You got Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada. Actually, they're very active in Arizona right now, and people are actually talking about they're doing analysis in New Mexico. And people are saying, hey, don't go to New Mexico. Just get me a win in Nevada. Trust me, you got teams all over the place, resources coming in. People, lawyers, data scientists are deployed. This is why there's more pressure in the mainstream media to say, oh, come on, you got to stop. You got to do this. It's hurting the republic. It's hurting democracy. Posobiec, what should people be looking for over the weekend?
Well, folks, what you need to look for over the weekend, specifically now, is that recount in Wisconsin is going to be continuing to go forward. And you also should be reaching out to your local representatives, right? We talked about the local level now. People who are on Facebook, people who have your local state representative, you reach out to them and say, what are you doing to secure the vote in this election? What are you doing to make sure that our serious votes, our actual votes, are not being diluted by any type of, and I won't even call it voter fraud, I'll call it election fraud, because that's what it is. They're trying to steal an election. This has been election fraud, right, that's gone through. Reach out to your state representatives. Reach out. We've got Joe Gale, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, has refused to certify the Montgomery County vote. That was something that just broke a few hours ago. These are the heroes. They're going to be stepping up right now on the front lines, and when you see one of them, make sure that they know they have your support.
Jack, what's your Twitter handle? How do people get access to Jack Posobiec during the day?
Just find Posobiec, JackPosobiec. Make sure to watch the new documentary, AntifaMovie.com.
Antifa Movie, and you can catch Jack on One America's News. Okay, Jack, thank you very much. We're going to take a short commercial break. Stuff's happening all over. There's news breaking all over. And this is what Jack was saying, when you, like the two officials coming through the airport were being mobbed. Make sure people understand that you have their back. Reach out to them. Go to their Twitter feed. Go to their websites. Let them know you're there for them. You don't need to send them money. Send them support and prayers and action. Next, John Frederick from Atlanta.